Thank you, Trey. That is way more talent than I have on the piano. Like a few years ago, I learned where middle C was, and I've already forgotten. Jim would not be happy about that. No, he would not. So, I love the lessons that we can see and get pulled out of the Old Testament. This week has been crazy. This has been one crazy week. This week I was known as Detective Clemens. And I was up here, and each day we had another case that needed to be solved. Something needed to be pulled out of the New Testament this week as we studied the parables. Well, the historical events recorded within the Old Testament have this amazing ability to make us sit back and think. Open up this morning. We will spend the whole time pretty much in Judges chapter 2, verses 6 through 11. If it helps you guys, it's in page 156 of my Bible. The people served the Lord all the days of Joshua, and all the days of the elders who outlived Joshua, who had seen all the great works that the Lord had done for Israel. Go down a couple verses. And there arose another generation after him who did not know the Lord or the works that he had done for Israel. And the people of Israel did what was evil in the sight of the Lord and served the Baals. Well, I know Brian is a big fan of baseball. So today I have the wonderful privilege of being the closer. In baseball, the closing pitcher, which is often referred to as the closer, they are the relief pitcher who specializes in getting the final outs in a close game when their team is leading. Now, I may not specialize in closing out sermons per se, but today we're in the ninth inning of Judges and Ruth. These books are coming to an end today. I got Danny's permission for this. But next week, Brian will be introducing Acts, showing Danny that it is possible to teach that book in 26 weeks. Our passage today, which is found in Judges 2, 6 through 11. I'm going to read the whole thing. When Joshua dismissed the people of Israel went each to his inheritance to take possession of the land. And the people served the Lord all the days of Joshua and all the days of the elders who outlived Joshua, who had seen all the great works that the Lord has done for Israel. And Joshua the son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died at the age of 110 years. And they buried him within the boundaries of his inheritance in Timnah-Heres, in the hill country of Ephraim, north of the mountain of Gash. And all that generation also were gathered to their fathers. And there arose another generation after them, who did not know the Lord or the works that he had done for Israel. And the people of Israel did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, and they served the Baals. What a passage for us to dig into, think about, and reflect on this morning. In the book titled So the Next Generation Will Know, J. Warner Wallace shared with his readers about how he prepared to be an investigator in his agency's gang detail in Los Angeles. When accepting the position, he was worried about if he was at a point in his life where he was too old and out of touch to effectively interact with the gang members that he would encounter. So he had to come up with a strategy to catch up. What would you do if you were placed in a position that you did not feel prepared for? Part of his strategy was to plug in by attending every organized gang meeting that he could find in Los Angeles. Listen carefully to what the other, more experienced officers had experienced and learn from them. There is wisdom in leaning on those who have already been on a journey that you're only beginning to take. It's time for us to become a sponge. Now, this morning, Brian asked me, a sponge, where are you going with this? And I was like, what do sponges do? And he's like, they stink. That's not where we're going this morning. But we all know and we love those famous knock-knock jokes. I would not be able to tell you the number of times I have tried to recite one of those jokes with the hopes of getting a smirk out of a friend or a student. I think it's important here to remember today, at this time, we are the ones who are currently on the other side of that door. The time has come for us to reflect on passages like what is found in Judges and ask this question: how do we avoid making those same mistakes that are seen by those generations throughout Judges? The first way is a sponge absorbs and love relates. How do we relate to those that need it? Regardless of your age or your position, my encouragement to you is to become a sponge. I say this for a few reasons. If you are wanting to reach the younger generation in a genuine way, it is important to know and accurately understand what they are thinking, seeing, and feeling about the world. Love relates. It's too easy to fall into the trap of believing that it is safe to make assumptions. To keep this from happening, you first need to be a good listener. Being a youth minister here, I think that's incredibly valuable if you are wanting to relate something to the youth in a way that they are able to understand. Listening to the younger generation is a seed that is needed to grow an authentic relationship with them. James chapter 1 verse 19 says, "Know this, my beloved brothers, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger, for the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God." Sometimes we may, as adults, have this backwards. I find myself being quick to speak and slow to hear sometimes. And the result can lead to me becoming annoyed or angry. Maybe you guys can relate. I certainly don't want to be the man that does not produce the righteousness of God. But good listening says, you are important to me. I want to understand you so I can respond to you in a caring manner. These are the seeds that we should want to plant within the lives of our youth, because once these seeds begin to sprout into a genuine relationship, rooted in us trying to understand them first, it creates an environment where you are able to then pour into them. I say it again, love relates. The A&E channel ran a special show called Understanding High. In the show, 7 young adults between the age of 21 and 26 went back to high school to get an inside perspective of what the students were like today. During their time undercover, what alarmed them the most was the disconnect between adults and teens. One of the undercover students said, "The teens are craving for adults to understand them and see them for who they are, the struggles that they are facing." The undercover students concluded that most of all, young people just want someone to talk to. Are you willing to have a conversation with a younger person and help fill his or her deep need for relationship? Let me encourage you today to engage with students this way, to help them grow and develop into a disciple of Christ so that they can engage with the world around them. This will only happen if those who you are trying to build a connection with first feel heard. There is true value in becoming a sponge. Soak in all the information you can. Find opportunities, make opportunities for you to go out and eat with them, talk with them, ask them questions, bond with them. Get to know what they are thinking. Get to know what they are seeing and believing. Sean McDowell, who was a co-author of the book, So the Next Generation Will Know, said, "This kind of relationship is the runway on which truth can land." Our goal is to avoid making the same mistakes seen by those generations throughout Judges. Being a good listener with the intention of relating to who you are wanting to connect with is the first step in how we avoid making those same mistakes. Keep in mind that when it comes to the younger generation, honestly, they won't take that first step. We need to. Secondly, love does not just relate. Love equips. That's why I love our slogan here. When it comes to encourage, equip, engage. Becoming a sponge doesn't mean you just soak in water. Sponges have this wonderful ability to release the water that they absorb into something else. Within the text this morning, the elders may have done a great job while they were around at making sure everyone followed God. However, they seem to have dropped the ball when it came to training up the next generation. It's not a secret that this is a problem within our churches today. Young people are becoming more isolated from the church. The hard truth is that it's happened here. But that doesn't mean that it has to continue. It is not an exaggeration to say that the solution to our problem at hand is to equip the younger generation that we love with everything we have to offer. It's not enough. It's not good enough to only listen to and learn about the next generation that you are planning on pouring into. There must be a point in that relationship when you start to pour into them. Speaking for myself, I've come to realize that I need those who have more experience than me to equip me with what they have. You guys should be familiar with this verse. Proverbs 27:17 reminds us that iron sharpens iron as one man sharpens another. There are men who have knowledge about the great and wonderful things that God has done that I have not been able to see with my own eyes or hear with my ears. This is information that we need to know, but how will we know if no one tells us? There is value in the younger generation not only knowing the what, but also having a clear understanding of the why. Equipping the younger generation with both is needed for them to grow in their faith. Follow this train of thought with me for a second. There was a new fisherman that was sent out for the morning catch. He knew the spot that he wanted to end up, but he was having trouble staying in that spot because he wasn't equipped with an anchor. He had the boat, and the boat was just enough to get him lost at sea. If we don't constantly equip the younger generation with a biblical worldview, we fail to equip them with everything that they need. The result will be the same for the young Christians as for the fishermen. They would have just enough to get them in trouble. The fishermen will be tossed by the waves, and the new Christians will absorb the ideas of today's culture. Once again, I encourage you to become a sponge by equipping the younger generation with the knowledge that you have. By investing into them like this, you will be encouraging and training them to become faithful disciples. Love equips. Now, I'm convinced that this is nothing new to you guys, and that this is a reminder. Because God has already had this strategy planned out from the beginning. We see within the Bible in passages like Matthew chapter 28. After proving once and for all that Jesus is the Son of God by rising from the dead on the third day, after being crucified in front of all the locals, he said to his apostles, "Go, therefore, and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you." These words would ring in their ears. These words would pierce their hearts because of his relationship with his apostles. When he called his disciples to first follow him, their worldview started to take shape for the better. I say this because worldviews are primarily shaped and learned through relationships. And our worldview shapes our values, which in turn influence the choices that we make in how we treat people, how we spend our money, how we spend our time. So what? Why does this matter? What happens if we fail to do this? Well, a little ice in a drink is okay, but an iceberg is not. On April 14th, 1912, the Titanic hit an iceberg 4 days into its journey. It sank around 2 a.m. on April 15th, killing 1,500 passengers. Now, I find that interesting only for the fact that I was born on April 14th. So it turns out that even though the Titanic was called an unsinkable ship, hitting an iceberg had some devastating effects. I bring this up hopefully to help illustrate the danger of not recognizing when you are approaching something dangerous. Failing to become an effective sponge has devastating side effects. We see this in today's passage. The elders written about in Judges failed to effectively train the younger generation, which started them down a path of suffering. Without those needed relationships, instead of being built up as servants of God, they started to seek counterfeits to fulfill that hole. It's no secret that the world is filled today with many counterfeits. The options out there seem endless, just like icebergs out in the cold, open waters. Many of those counterfeits, though, have an additional danger of being addictive. Sit back for a moment and think, what counterfeits are waiting for the youth when we're not around? It doesn't take long to think of an intimidating list staring us in the face. the counterfeit of consumerism. That which is promoted in commercials, social media promotions, and celebrities that promise that if you buy a certain product, their lives will be filled. They may not say this directly, but the consistent exposure to advertisements promotes this message that they're missing out on something and they need to consume an item for fulfillment. The counterfeit of busyness. The idea of constantly being distracted by something. Busyness promotes the idea that it's easier to live a life that is in a state of distraction instead of facing any emotional hurt. Fulfillment comes from what you are able to get done. The counterfeit of social media. A counterfeit that promotes the idea of fostering human connections. It's great for that. You can find people who you went to school with. This, however, is not complete. We need embodied relationships. We need appropriate touch, eye contact, and presence. A digital like cannot replace a physical hug. The counterfeit of video games. This counterfeit is great for entertainment, but is also used as a source to fill their hearts with meaning and significance. Many video games are designed to promise respect, community, identity, and control. The very thing that many youth are looking for. And the last one, the counterfeit of pornography. A counterfeit which tries to fulfill a deep relational need, removing vulnerability which is needed for real love, eliminating the risk of possible rejection, substituting for a counterfeit love. And from my list, this is the only one that is wrong at all times. It's okay to buy things. It's okay to be busy sometimes. It's okay to use social media. It's okay to play video games. But do not let those replace God. So, the so what should be clear. These are the waters in which our youth will be traveling into. I strongly encourage you to partner with me in learning from the mistakes of others so we don't make those mistakes ourselves. This world can be a scary place when you are alone. However, if you commit to becoming a sponge within your community, the process can start for the students that you love to be transformed into sponges themselves. As we close up with our thoughts today, show the youth in your life that love relates to them, or show them a love that relates to them by being willing to be quick to hearing. Listen good to them and what they have to say. Create opportunities for you to be talking to them and be patient. Show them a love that equips them with everything they need to be successful ambassadors for Christ to this world. Train them to be disciples of Christ because that is the mission that Christ has given us. Recognize that there are many counterfeits and icebergs out there knocking on their door. Become a sponge. Jesus spent so much time with his disciples. 3 years, day in and day out, training them, helping to equip them. It's not an easy process. It's not a quick process. But it's rewarding. It is the opportunity to help the younger generation grow the church. We invest in the church financially, Let's invest in the church in a physical way by investing into the children. Knock, knock. You are. Today is a great day to become a servant of God. As I ask the instrumentalists to make their way up. I kept my promise. Some people asked me if the sermon was going to be a little bit short today. It always is when I'm up here. Always. I like to say what I want to say and I'm gone. But today is a great day to become a servant of God. And I want to invite you guys to do that. When we talk about becoming a sponge and relating and equipping, we want to reach out to those people who don't know Christ. We want to share the gospel. We want them to come to hear what is being taught. What does the Bible actually say? How can we be as biblical as possible? How can we say it in a convincing way for people to believe? We want people to believe. Believe in God. Confess, repent, be baptized, and live a faithful life. Like I said this morning, today's sermon, today's idea is nothing that you guys are not familiar with already. But sometimes we need a healthy reminder that being faithful can reflect sometimes something that might be stinky. Because this job, our responsibility, is not always easy. When I'm at the house, my chore is dishes. So I'm always around the sponge. But as we close up today, I want to invite you guys, if you have not put your faith in Jesus, to please come up forward today and let's talk about it. Let's see what a life following Christ would look like and what responsibilities we have on our side. If you also are looking for a home church, a place where you can worship, please come here. We have fantastic elders in this church. And can I get a round of applause for them? Men who truly care about us, who want to train us up and equip us with everything that they can offer. If you are looking for a place to call your church home, please consider Kent Christian Church, a place where they will train you and equip you with what you need to be a successful Christian. As we sing the song, Jesus, I Come, two verses of Jesus, I Come, will you please come?